Good morning and welcome to our webinar now, The Digital Mine Today, an introduction to Pulse Analytics, this time with audio. Our co-presenters are Ashley Bosworth, Director of Pulse Mining Systems, and Mitchell O'Neill, Lead Analytics Developer for Pulse Analytics. We will learn about the transformation of business performance with Pulse Analytics and see the digital mine in action as we view real-time KPI dashboards drawn from actual mining operations. Finally, there'll be a Q&A session and takeaways will be available. We begin now with Ash Bosworth explaining how Pulse Analytics was developed in direct response to the needs of the mining industry and the challenges presented by big data. Over to you now, Ash.
Thanks, Mel, and welcome again to this webinar. Thanks everyone for attending. A few years ago, the mining industry entered phase 4.0, which is something that we didn't coin, but has been around the traps, which was largely driven by the downturn in Australia. Out of that came the recognition from mining companies they needed to use their intelligence much better, which means, in effect, using the data they have currently or already had in existence from IIoT or industrial Internet of Things sources such as machines, SCADA systems, fleet management systems. Basically, mines had all this information but weren't able to use it effectively in their decision-making processes. In uses such as business intelligence and further in other industries in an artificial intelligence style to provide predictive analytics and maybe even machine learning, where machines can adapt to data automatically based on some logic that has been put in place. The main problem around that was the integration of multiple data sources. You have multiple places where data is being created, but the ability to put that together to then facilitate BI or AI applications was proven to be quite difficult. So mines wanted to transform towards the digital mine to achieve what they wanted in business, but they found it very difficult to do so. So we identified this, and the first phase of what we've done in that area is to provide the Pulse Analytics solution. We're analysing captured data to produce meaningful, actionable, real-time insights that Mitch will demonstrate later. And it's already in place at multiple sites to enable people to make accurate decisions based on real data. We have been able to fulfill what the Industry 4.0 has demanded, in which we're getting a return on investment on their data and the investment on the machines that are providing that information, and able to leverage that data to provide the BI insights that allow your company, your business to become more efficient, more competitive, and ultimately more profitable. So the original Pulse Analytics products were first done through collaboration with the Centennial Mine group. We were given a couple of weeks to provide a prototype on some longwall information. They had been struggling previously with the OEM of their longwall to get some meaningful information from the longwall put into useful intelligence. We managed to do that quite quickly, and based on that success, they decided to continue working with us to basically come up with the fleet or the suite of products that they're currently utilising today. I'm going to show a short video later that some of you may have seen already that highlights how they're utilising Pulse Analytics in this way. Effectively, what we've given those guys is the ability to have a single version of the truth, which is all the data sources are being brought together to provide combined analytics that is used all through their organisation. So how do we do it? As mentioned, we can capture data from multiple sources, or in fact any source, including ERP systems, obviously of which Pulse has one. Any other software such as an Excel spreadsheet, an Access database, or other data source that might be in use on sites, direct to sensors or other applications such as Pi, historian systems and the like. We then integrate and analyse that in real time to produce the BIs, of which Mitch will show some samples in a minute. You can also run Pulse Analytics across any device, and you can dial into it from anywhere because the whole system is cloud-based. And it also allows you to drill down through KPIs down to transaction level information if you desire to really get to the nitty-gritty of what has caused things to happen and factor in accurate decision making. We basically coined the term the networked BI, which is the back-end solution of our architecture. Historically, around about 80% of large BI implementations have failed, and this isn't a statistic that we've come up with, but people like the Standish Group have written papers on this. That's why we turn to a networked BI architecture to allow us to produce small individual parcels or apps in the BI space that can be networked together to provide an overall solution across the entire commercial and physical running of a modern mine. It allows us to guarantee, in cases, success because we don't have a overall picture that has to be satisfied to be able to provide solutions to individuals within certain areas of the mining. So the maintenance guys, the production guys, the supply guys, the finance people, they all are separable but joined, if you will. So we can satisfy individuals as well as the entire group. When we implemented at Centennial, it was interesting to watch as the initial products we went in were measuring the time to first coal, or TTFC KPI, which is measured from the shift start to when the continuous miners were actually cutting into the coal face. We were able to do this by measuring the current in the cutter motor of the continuous miners. When it passed a threshold, then we were able to consider that the mine was cutting coal. Historically, it had been written down manually and was set on average to be around 120 minutes, but when we measured it in the way that I just described, it was actually shown to be on average around about 180 minutes. Now, within a couple of weeks, Centennial used this data to reduce that time back from 180 to the expected 120, which resulted in quite substantial operational and productivity gains, and the monetary gains they achieved through that quite substantial. So I'm just going to play a video, which is a case study around what Centennial have done.
Pulse Analytics has been introduced across a variety of initiatives at our mine sites as part of our reporting and our data analysis. We look at it and view it every day, if not every shift. It's part of our tactical review management system, and we do that through multiple levels of the mine site, from the face level right through to team management.
We're experts at mining the coal, and we're good at our mining processes, and we're good at our machine engineering. What we're not experts at is how to present the data to the guys. Where Pulse Analytics have been great for us is the expertise in that area of how to present and represent that data to best effect.
It was important for us to go from our older systems, which were reviewing our processes on a 24-hour basis or even later, to a real-time review process whereby at the end of the shift we could actually have the team, while it's still fresh in their head, analyse how they went for the shift and how we could improve, or if we went well, to actually recognise and acknowledge the success of that shift.
We want to be able to see reasonably quickly, without having to do a lot of detailed analysis, where our big issues were, and that's very, very easy to do with the visualisation, the colours and the bar charts.
In my 32 years operational experience, I've found that miners are very competitive, and if we give them the challenges, if we set the targets that are achievable, they'll go out and do their utmost to get them.
Being able to see that our data is accurate, it's reliable, means that we take much more of a keen interest in being able to say that we've beat the other shifts. So being able to have that information available for us and have it be accurate is really good for us to narrow down onto how we can perform and where we can pick up and improve our performance overall.
And that's part of the success, is that we now have everybody within Centennial Coal all looking, talking and measuring the same elements of our process.
We have quite a large amount of products already constructed in the Pulse Analytics library. As you can see there, they pretty much cover every aspect of the commercial operations and physical operations of the mine's requirements. Mitch is going to show a handful of these in a minute. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Mitch to do a demo of some actual products running live. So this is not stuff that is screenshot. You are running or seeing the actual Pulse Analytics running live just off some demo data. So the data in it has been obfuscated and faked. You may notice that some of the dates are a little old, but you should still be able to see through what Mitch is going to demonstrate what the Pulse Analytics suite is capable of. So over to you, Mitch.
Thanks, Ash. And as Ash just said, I'm just going to run through a couple of sample data sets. Today, we're going to be looking at some production analytics, which leads then into some machine data analytics, which we just saw in that video. Some work order or maintenance analytics, some analytics on stores and inventory and purchase orders. And finally, the last one I'll go through today is unit costing. So what you can see now is a sample of production analytics, and what we're looking at here is a site summary. And what we can see on this page is trends of how we're performing compared to budget and what our operating rates were. So on this particular data set, we're looking at longwall and development for an underground mine, but this is totally configurable to your mine with KPIs that we discuss with you when setting this up. With any of these charts on the page, if you hover over it, it will give you some more information about your performance. And any of these charts, you can also increase to full size of the screen if you were to review them in a meeting, for example. We also have the ability to change the date range that we're looking at. So we're currently looking at year to date, but if I change the filter to month to date, you'll see that the charts will update to a month to date range. This is typical for a lot of our products. You're able to view the data in different ways, and it's quite interactive. You're able to chop and change how you're looking at the data and filter right down to the detail. I'm going to have a look at another dashboard within the production analytics suite now, and we're going to have a look at some availability and utilization. Now on this page up the top, we've got both availability and utilization for a particular piece of equipment, along with the targets. So where I've got my mouse at the moment is our budgeted availability, and above we've got the utilization. For this chart, if I wanted to look at just availability, for example, I can click on these buttons down here to turn off the lines that I don't want to look at, to refine the focus for our availability that we want to look at. Down the bottom, we have what we call activities to improve. So these are the things that are lowering your availability or utilization, depending on what filter you have selected up here, based on different activities and the reasons for that activity. So for example, if I hover my mouse over this section of the bar, we're looking at an unplanned mechanical downtime due to alignment or tracking issues. Now, if I were to click on this, it's going to take me to a page that lists all the actual transaction records that contribute to that. Now, this is something that you'd be able to export to Excel to do further analysis on, or export it as a PDF if you wanted to use it as a report. So talking on delays, I'm going to go to another page now, which is called Activity Analytics. Now, this is looking at all the activities that are being performed in the mine. And at the moment, we're looking just at a longwall system. You can see that the most common activity that's being performed is operating the longwall. However, the next most common is unplanned mechanical downtimes, some idle times, and some planned production downtimes. Let's say I just wanted to have a look at these three just by themselves. What I'm going to do is click and highlight around this and release. And you'll see that the entire dashboard has now been filtered just to those that I was looking at, including both this chart and the chart on the right here. Now, the chart on the right here shows in bubbles the total frequency along this way, along the x-axis, and the average duration of that particular activity and reason combination. The size of the bubble, however, is the total duration that's spent. So along this way, this bubble here is something that's occurring quite often and has a large total hours due to the size of the bubble, but the average duration of those is quite low. However, up here, things that are occurring relatively infrequently, but have quite large average duration. Again, on this chart, if I wanted to focus on a particular area, I can click and drag around it, and it'll show me the results just for those that I've selected. And again, you'll see that the chart on the left also updates. Again, with these, if I wanted to look in more detail, I would just click on it, and it would take me to the same page that we saw before with the transaction level details. To remove any filters that we have set as we've drilled into this data, you can see the filters come up the top here. To remove them, I just click the X, and it's going to start removing the filters that I have applied. So you can see we're back to where we started. So it's very easy to drill down into detail, but it's also very easy to get back to where you were to start investigation down another path. We're going to have a look at a quick dashboard now that's focused on just delays instead of all activities. And this is our delay analysis by activity. Now, what this dashboard is looking at is, again, your different activities that are causing your delays, along with the reasons for them and any sub-reasons if they were occurring. On this page, I might want to look at a particular activity type. So I use the filter that's on the side of the dashboard here. I might select unplanned downtime. You can see that selecting this will update the rest of the page based on my filter selection, and I'm able to follow the drill path down. For example, again, I might want to click on unplanned mechanical downtime, which will take me to another page which breaks it down by reason and sub-reason again if it's recorded. Now, in this chart here, we can see there's two particular reasons that have a very high frequency compared to the rest. And this gives you a good comparison of their frequency compared to the rest, but it doesn't give you an indication of the overall percentage of their occurrence. So what I'm going to do is go and change how I view it to be a pie chart. And you can see that the combination of these two take up almost 2/3 of the total delay time. So this might be something that you focus on to improve your performance. These are just some of the dashboards that we have available in production analytics, and there's a couple of other areas focused on your production statistics and other different views for delay analysis as well. But we're going to move on to some longwall analytics now, which is a sample of our machine data offering. Now, as Ash mentioned before, for our machine analytics, we are capturing the data tags that are recorded off the equipment directly, And these are integrated with data out of the Pulse production system to create a dashboard view of your performance for your various machine operations. We currently have offerings for longwall development, continuous miners, and coal tram, as well as conveyors. But this is a sample of just some of the type of work that we're doing in this area. So you'll notice very similar to what we saw in production analytics, we have a homepage showing key KPIs. So here we've got average shears per shift, the average time to first coal, which is the time from when the shift starts to when they start cutting, the average time to last coal, the time from when they last cut to the end of their shift, and also the amount of time in a percentage that we were cutting compared to the available time. We also have down the bottom a timeline per shift of the total number of shears that have been performed. Now, again, we can filter this information based on the filters that are on the side here. But what I wanted to show you today was if we click into one of these, we're going to view a dashboard version of a tactical report. Now, this is the dashboard version. There's also a PDF version, which is generated and emailed to you and is sitting in your email inbox at the end of your shift for your review process, like we saw in the video before. Now, what we can see here is we're capturing the cutting time, the non-cutting time, and any time where comms were down for the machine based on the various tags that are available, what kind of mode the machine was operating in, and what zone the longwall shearer was in at each part of the shift. Here we have a trace line, so we're getting data every 30 seconds, and we're plotting it here for the position of the shearer over the entire length of the shift. And again, this is color coordinated based on what operating state they are in. Red for any delays, like we can see here, and the black down here is for any comms down. Now, if we continue to come down, we can look in more detail at the actual data tags, the ones and zeros that are coming off the machine. So for example, we can see here the period where comms were down. We can see where it's cutting, where it's up if it's cutting and down if it's not, and any faults that are occurring. So for example, a trip lanyard was operated here, which caused the longwall belt to stop moving. Very similar offerings are available for our gay road and conveyor systems, along with coal tram as well. Changing track now, we're going to have a look at some maintenance analytics in our product called Work Order Analytics. Now, this product was developed to answer questions such as, am I completing all the work orders that I'm scheduling for each week? Is my backlog growing in size or is it reducing in size? And what have I got upcoming? And do I have the labor to meet what I have upcoming? On this first dashboard, we have some key KPIs about the number of work orders that were scheduled at the start of the period, what was added during the period, and how many we've finished in the current week, as well as the schedule compliance that we had for last week. Over on the right at the top, we can view the trend of our schedule compliance based on our different sites over time. So we can see that in this particular case, we're sitting between 80 and 100% compliance for most weeks. However, there's some weeks where not all work was being completed. We also have the number of work orders that were scheduled for each week based on different criteria. For example, we're looking at breakdown maintenance, planned maintenance, or any scheduled services. What we've got upcoming in terms of both the number of work orders and the labour hour that's estimated for those work orders. And also some backlog tracking, the number of work orders we have in the backlog and the average age of work orders in the backlog as well. I'm going to have a look at some schedule compliance now and show you how we can look at our schedule compliance in different ways. We can see here a trend of our schedule compliance over time. both the total schedule compliance, which is comprised of both those that were scheduled at the start of the week, plus those that were added during the week. So things that were added during the week may include things like breakdowns or emergency repairs that needed to be attended to. And we can also see the total scheduled work for each of these weeks as well. Both what was at the start of the period and added in period, along with the labour associated with those hours. On the right at the top here, we're able to break down a particular week and look at the number of work orders that were both scheduled and finished for that week, based on a number of different attributes. So at the moment, we're looking at it by site, but if I wanted to look at it by department, I just select department here, and you can see that this has changed to be looking at mechanical, electrical, fabrication, and production departments, along with the estimated labour hours for those work orders as well, based on what trade. So whether it's a technician, a contractor, an electrician, boilermaker, and so on. We can also apply a number of different filters for this data, but there is also a table down the bottom as well that gives you information about what plant, what department, what the work order was, when it was raised, when it's scheduled, and when it was finished, if it was finished. Moving on to backlog now, we see a couple of very similar views, tracking our backlog age and labour hours over time, as well as the average work order age for work orders that are in the backlog. And again, we're able to break down a selected week and look at what the backlog items were for that week. Again, both by labour and by the selection of different attributes here, whether it's site or department and so on. So this will allow you to see whether your backlog's growing in size or reducing in size, and if there's any work orders that are getting quite old that need attending to. Again, there's a table down the bottom here which will give you information about what work orders were in your backlog at this particular point in time. Moving on now to your current forward log as well. This is looking at what you've got upcoming as of this week in terms of number of work orders scheduled and the labour hours. So you can use this to see I've got say 600 work orders scheduled and about 6,000 labour hours. Does this meet the amount of labour that I actually have available for this week, or do I need to look at putting more people on or rescheduling some of these work orders to make sure that we can get through them? Similar kind of idea as well, we can break down this based on a number of different attributes and see a listing of what work orders are coming up for a particular week. The final dashboard I wanted to show you here as well is backlog age analytics. And what this shows you is your oldest 50 work orders in your backlog for a particular week. So these are ones that probably need attending to or may have been overlooked and completed but not actually closed out in the system. So you can use this to see what your oldest work orders are and take action on them if required. I'm going to move ahead now and look at some stores and inventory analytics. And this module was developed to look at what stock items do I currently have available now and trending over time. What movements have these stock items had, whether it's being issued, coming into the store, coming out of the store, or any stock takes that have occurred, as well as how are my purchase orders going, what are my vendor performance, and how much am I spending in particular areas. So the first dashboard that we have here is showing us our current value on hand for different stock items, trended over time, broken down by what store they're sitting in, what category of stock item they are, what vendor has the most value that we're currently holding, any stock adjustments that have been occurring, and some details about what our stock items are, including what the current quantity is, what the current value is, and whether we need to reorder them or not. Looking at purchase orders, this is going to show you how much you're spending in particular areas, including by vendor, when you spent them, any orders that have been placed after the invoice date. So this chart was developed as a particular client was wanting to track this to see which people were not placing their orders before receiving the invoice. What department is raising the purchase orders, what type of purchase orders they are, what type of delivery is being used, whether it's emergency delivery or standard delivery. And again, on this page, we're able to view a list of transactions as well as we drill into detail. If I wanted to look at a particular company's performance, I can click on it. So I'm just picking one here by clicking on it, and it's going to take us to a vendor performance page, which is going to tell you whether they're performing by delivering their items early, on time, or whether they're late. What type of purchase orders are being raised, what departments they're in, and when it's being spent as well. Another interesting dashboard on here is slow moving stock. So this is going to tell you about stock items in your stores that haven't moved in at least a year, or even ones that have never moved at all. And you can use this dashboard to look at, do we need to keep this slow moving stock on hand, or can we look at taking action against that? So we can see down here the slowest 100 stock items. So these are the ones that have been moved, but it's been a long time since they've moved. And we see a stock item out here that's worth quite a bit, but hasn't moved in quite a significant period of time. Again, similar to what we saw in production analytics, we can click and drag around this to view a particular subset of this data in detail. Or we can chop and change it by selecting any selection like I'm doing up here. So I selected these two to remove critical spares because they're ones that you probably need to keep on hand. So we can look at this in more detail as I've just demonstrated. I'm going to move now to the last analytics product that we wanted to demonstrate today, which was unit costing. Now, unit costing was developed to answer the question of how much am I spending based on some measure of operational performance, whether that be the number of tonnes that we're producing, number of saleable tonnes, or even at a particular equipment level, such as engine hours. So at the moment, we're looking at dollars per tonne sold. We have a timeline of the unit cost for each month in the particular financial period, as long as what the units were and the costs. And we also have breakdowns by companies and divisions. What I can do here is I can change what measure I'm looking at from tonnes sold to, for example, ROM tonnes that were produced. I simply apply this filter and you'll see that the rest of the dashboard gets updated accordingly. Now, if I wanted to drill down in more detail here, I might want to look at my production division. I click on this and it's drilled down into detail for the production division, showing the trends over time, the actual values that were produced for each month, and then a breakdown by site. If I want to go into this a bit more, again, I click on it and that's going to give me a cost breakdown of what was occurring by my account groups and individual accounts, as well as cost center groups and individual cost centers. Again, here I can click and drag around certain cost center groups or cost centers or accounts to filter this data further. I might want to pick these ones as well. And then again, I can scroll down and get a list of my actual transactions that contributed to the cost of these over the selection that I've made. What you can do as well is you can create a bookmark for this. So if this is a particular view that you want to come back to in the future, you can come up here to the bookmarks page and create a bookmark. So what I'm going to do is create a bookmark. And what that does is saves the filter selection that I've made, so that in future, if I come back to the page, I can go to the bookmarks and select the one that we have here. So that's going to load the page for the selection that we have previously made and save, to save you time having to come back and remember what filters you had applied. So that wraps it up from me, from our demonstration today. I'll now hand back over to Mel.
Thank you, everyone. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this morning's webinar. We'll be in touch within the next few days to see if you'd like to access a video. We'll just do some editing so that we remove the first part without the audio. Also, personalised demonstrations are available at Pulse Analytics, and you might like to take the opportunity when we do get in touch to request one of those. We can set it up for you. Also, anybody who is attending IMARC in Melbourne at the end of this month, I think the 29th of October through to the 1st of November, you can come and visit Pulse's exhibition stand at E68 down near the Mets Ignited Lounge. So thanks once again, everybody, and have a very good day.